You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
Welcome back to Real Talk Texas. Today in the studio, we have Nick and Julie Bristow of Bristow Residential, and their website is Bristow, Bristow, residential.com. You can go to their website and reach out to them there, or you can reach me directly at realtalktexas.com. Just hit the contact button, send me a quick note, and I'll put you in touch with some real experts that can help you in the house flipping business. And one of the things I do want to mention is that when you go to their website, you're going to see that that's really not what they're advertising on the site. They're really, the other part of their business is they focus on the luxury market. And they do a lot of business in the higher-end homes in the Metroplex, and they do a fantastic job there of having product available and helping you find the right house for you if you're in the luxury market. And so, you know, one of the things before break, we started talking about challenging Nick and Julia to give us the answers, give you, the listener out there, the answers to, and I like to boil things down to make it simple for me. What are the top 5 things that we need to do to make sure that you're successful in this business? And Nick, during the break, we started talking a little bit about that. So maybe we want to talk about number 1.
Number 1 is being financially sound enough to do it. And I'm going to give you an example. I have a friend of mine that flips houses. He's been doing it for a long time. He purchased a house, I think in Mesquite or Balch Springs somewhere. Put it on the market for $120. Got an offer the first day. He does real nice work. It was an FHA loan on the house. First appraisal came in at $112, so he agreed to reduce.
The buyer was getting an FHA,
yes,
right?
The buyer was getting an FHA loan. Appraisal came in at $112. My buddy said, yeah, I'll reduce to $112. Let's get it sold. FHA hit the brakes, said, wait a minute, you're over the 20% margin on the profit.
Let's talk about that for a second, 20%. Yep. FHA is a lender. I'll chime in here. When you're selling a house within the first 6 months that someone has owned it, so say I'm a flipper and I bought the house in January 1st, until June 30th or July 1st, I have some constraints on what I can actually sell the house for. Right. And one of those constraints is that the value from what you bought it for can't be more than 20% higher than when you go to sell it. Now, there's some caveats there I want to make sure everybody's clear on. Say you paid $80,000 for the house and you put $20,000 worth of improvements that you can document. Okay. Yes. So now really my money into the house is $100,000. Right. So I can sell it to somebody for $120. They can get an FHA loan. We can do the FHA loan at affiliated bank all day long as it's within that, if it's within the first 6 months. After 6 months, it's an open market. Whatever it appraises for, then we're good to go. But within that first, and that's where I think flippers really want to focus. Yeah. They don't want to buy and hold properties. So you got to be cognizant of that fact. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So what happened to him is I believe he had about $80,000 in the house after he was done rehabbing it, and it was worth $110, $120 in that price range. Appraisal came back at $112. FHA said, we want to see everything you did to the house, and we want a second appraisal. So he submitted all his work he'd done to the house. Second appraisal came in at $67,000. That appraiser did a drive-by, didn't go in the house. He just pulled the lowest valued comps he could find and did the report, and he refused to alter his report after he'd been given the list of upgrades. So he was stuck. An FHA appraisal sticks with your house for 6 months. Mm-hmm. So he went ahead and rented the house. And my point being, he had $80,000 in the house. He could rent it for $1,400. So if you're flipping a house for a first time, or you may not have the wherewithal to hold a property for a while, it's not a bad idea that your first house be in an area that if you can't sell it, you can rent it and at least cash flow it until the market picks back up, or you get another capital partner to help you out and then put it back on the market.
Okay. All right. So number 1, make sure that you're prepared, I think, that you might have to rent it out, and make sure that that's a contingency plan in when you're modeling the business for that particular house. Okay, so the second thing that you might want to do, what's the next thing that I would want to do to make sure I'm successful in this business?
I would say figure out how you're going to redo the house, if you're going to make any changes to it, whether you have time or the capability to do it yourself, or if you're going to hire a crew. That's where all the research starts. I would go with word of mouth. Like if you want someone to paint or someone to build kitchen cabinets, you're going to want to speak to people who have done it. that can give you referrals, because we have been down that road. When we first started, we had people that, oh, yes, I can do that, and it's like my 5-year-old could have done a better job. So it's just getting out there talking to people, and your realtor can help you with that.
And getting subcontractors
Absolutely.
that are reliable, that
Absolutely.
have a good, that have been checked out, and you guys probably have a long list of people that you would
Absolutely.
recommend.
Yes, we do.
If they contact you.
But you know what? You still, when the work is going on, you still have to stay on them and make sure they're there, and not taking a coffee break every 10 minutes, because it's your dollar.
So you're acting as the general contractor for this remodel that's being done on the home.
Mm-hmm.
So
they see me walking up with my stilettos, my hands are clapping, and they better know they better be
You
working.
just have to be careful. We had a house we were flipping, and one of the members of the crew, someone stole our trailer with about $5,000 worth of tile on it. And then the other half of the crew they were removed from the country. We had just hired them as inexpensive contractors, and for whatever reason, they got deported. So we were left like no crew and no tile. So it was panic mode. So those kind of things happen. So you have to be careful who you pick.
Mm-hmm. There's just things that you learn. I mean, you're going to make errors when you first start. Everyone does. It's a learning curve.
So number 2 would be make sure that you've got reliable contractors and you've got a good plan there.
Yes.
What's number 3? I would think it would probably come down to what's the next step to make sure you're successful. Is that to have a good budget planner or something like that, or what would you say?
I'd say have obviously a good budget, but also understand the processes involved in flipping a house. You don't install the carpet then paint. There's a progression involved in how you evolve the house from pre-flip to post-flip. And so you need to pencil that, make a little flow chart of how it needs to go, and then just follow that. Because the contractors otherwise would be climbing all over each other, damaging the work. The electrician's damaging the work of the painter and the sheetrock. So you have to do it in order.
Well, I got to tell you, you made me smile when you talk about putting down the carpet and then paint, because I have been banned from painting anything in my house because I'm that guy that's painting, and I always kick over the bucket of paint or something like that, and it's always on the new carpet and things like that. So
if you get more paint on yourself than the wall, you shouldn't paint.
That would be me in this relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be my 4th thing that would make me be successful at this business?
Stay on top of the flip. It's very easy sometimes to get involved with your other job if you have another job, and that starts falling to the wayside, then you're accruing holding costs. You have to learn your work rhythm. Every flipper has their own work rhythm, and that's probably the most important thing to understand after your first flip. Okay, I thought it would take me 3 weeks. It took me 3 months. I know guys that, we can flip a house in 2 weeks. I know guys, they can only flip a house every 3 or 4 months. That's just their pace, their rhythm. And so you need to assess the reality of your work rhythm. We had purchased, I think, a 700-square-foot condo off Oak Lawn to flip. This has been a while, but years back, before they built the W, and we got extremely busy with work. Well, that 700-square-foot condo, by the time I finished it and got it on the market, they had built and occupied the W. That's how long it took me, because I got so busy it just fell to the wayside. I didn't make it. In fact, we lost money on it.
Yeah.
So you have to be cognizant of your time involved.
So you would also have to look at the carrying costs involved. If it's if I'm expecting to sell a house within 30 days or 60 days, I'm sure, because I watch the TV show, right? So it's like, man, they're getting prepared to write another check for the mortgage. It's like strike 2, and that's where I start to cringe. It just scares the heck out of me. So I guess the 5th thing, which would tie all this together as far as being successful in house flipping, and reach out there to my brother-in-law, who hopefully is listening and he wants to get into this business. What's the summation here? What's the most important thing to make sure you're successful?
I would say don't get in a hurry. You need to take your time. You need to, like I said before, it's research. You need to think about everything in advance, have your prices down. You research if you're going to buy appliances, look to see how much those are going to cost. You just want to have all of that ahead of time, because once it starts, it's like a ball rolling down a hill. You don't have time to backtrack and try to figure all that stuff out once you've started.
Yeah.
So, David, if you're listening out there, and I know that you are, and you might know my
David,
brother-in-law, David, because he's very aggressive and he's very fast, and I'm telling you, great work ethic, and just one of those guys that when he decides to do something, he goes 110 mile an hour, Right. So I'm sure he can't wait to get on that highway that's going between here and San Antonio. But, that's one of the things immediately, he's got his money lined up, he's ready to go. Of course, he's trying to find a house like right now. I mean, he wants to, go fast. So maybe a suggestion that don't jump on the very first one you see. Make sure you slow down, put all the numbers together, get a good real estate agent like you, Julia, that will really do the research behind. And when you start working with David, I would want you to reel him in a little bit, make sure that he's making the right decisions.
Well, one thing about people that are trying to move too quickly and something that we see often are buyers that want to go in and flip a home and they don't do an inspection.
Yep, that's a big problem.
Really, and then inspections. We had
problem.
David Selman of Selman and Home Inspections on the show a few weeks ago, and they're not that expensive.
They are not, and they go through every inch of the home, and they can tell you what you need to know, because when you go to flip and you want to sell it, they're going to do an inspection.
Right, and you got to fill out a seller's disclosure, and you need to know what's going on with the house. Right.
The biggest problem we've run into with that are roofs. The flipper doesn't see the roof; he's standing up on the ground. They buy without an inspection. They flip the house. It goes on the market. The new buyer gets it inspected, and the roof fails. And they're like, the flipper's like, well, the roof looked great. Well, it may look great, but it may not be insurable. So that's been one of the single biggest mistakes I see, is they don't get the roof inspected.
And we do get hail on the Metroplex.
Oh,
yes, we do.
You just always get the house inspected. Always.
We're going to go to break, and after the break, we're going to talk some more with Nick and Julia Bristow of Bristow Residential, and you can see them at bristowresidential.com. And I'm going to ask them a little bit about what they feel is going to happen in 2013. And we started talking about that as far as inventory in the market today and how many homes are available for this. But and then I'll give you some financing tips on how to make sure that this has a really good exit strategy for you as well. So stay tuned, and you'll hear more secrets about house flipping.